welcome to Sunny with a Chance of Chaos, the podcast that is equal parts optimistic and realistic. Join me as we navigate the ups and downs that everyday life brings. I'm Lindsay, and I'm so glad you're here. So get a coffee, get comfy, and get ready for a little bit of life's chaos. Hey everyone, welcome back. So glad you're here. Always so glad you're here. So we're heading into a new school year pretty soon. And our carefree days of summer, for our kids anyway, maybe they weren't so carefree for you, they're coming to an end. And I got thinking about the concept of time and how we use time, and I remembered that a few episodes back, I actually think it was in episode 1, I made the comment about how busy we all are and how life just seems to keep getting busier and busier. And I joked about making an entire episode on it. And, well, here I am. And I'm asking, where does all the time go? Every day we are gifted 24 precious hours. Some days drag, others fly by. There are countless quotes out there, if you search for it, about time. One of my favorites, I remember people using when my kids were really little, was "The days are long, but the years are short." And this was so true, especially when they were babies and toddlers. Long days of baby babble and diapers and failed nap attempts and teething and drooling. And then I blinked, and they were 6 feet tall and needed to shave. So, see what I mean? Long days, short years. So what does it mean to have enough time? How much do we have? How much do we need? Where does it all go? Why does it go faster some moments and slower in others? And how do we make sure we're making the most of the time we're given? Just so we're clear, I'm not asking any deep existential questions here about what is time. This isn't a philosophy podcast per se. I am mostly just trying to make sense of why life is so busy and help you and me be mindful of the ways in which we use the time that we have. I have a good friend, Kay, who's legit the busiest person I know. Remember, she was the one who drove across the border to come and get me from the Detroit airport. She has 2 jobs. She is the superhero single mom of 4 really busy kids, all of whom are athletes, musicians, etc., and need to be driven everywhere constantly. Whenever I think of having enough time, I think of her and her life. Here are 2 quick examples of moments in her life. A few weeks ago, she asked if she could use my Wi-Fi for a very important meeting she had to run, not just attend, online around 6 p.m. I thought this was weird because she has her own Wi-Fi, but this meeting was happening at the exact same time as one of her daughter's volleyball practices. That practice was close to my house, so Kay drove all over the city, dropping her other kids off at various things, logged onto her meeting as she drove across the city with her daughter in tow, while attending the meeting in the car on speakerphone, arrived at my house, switched over to my Wi-Fi, continued the meeting in her AirPods while prepping the dinner she had made for the volleyball kiddo ahead of time and brought it with her. I was enlisted to take the daughter to her practice so the mom could actually focus on the meeting with her whole brain, not just a portion of it. She holed up in my home office while I got her daughter to practice. It was madness. Too many things, not enough time to do them all. Second example, same friend. She and I had tattoo appointments booked at the same time, 4 o'clock on a Saturday. Her 2 oldest girls were busy with friends, leaving the 2 youngest kids to be forced to tag along to the tattoo shop with us. Oh, and also did I mention she packed snacks for them and was attending a virtual meeting for work on those same AirPods the entire time she was being tattooed. Her kids hung out and ate digestive cookies, and we got inked by a bald man with a giant butterfly on his skull. It was madness, but she managed to get it all in. What's the moral of this story? I actually don't know. I'm too tired reliving them to think of one. Please also bear in mind that that was only 2 moments in the life of a busy single mom that I happen to be privy to. I can only imagine what the rest of her days and moments look like. Maybe this sounds familiar to some of you busy people out there. Maybe you're working full time while going to school and to get a degree so you can get a job you love with better pay, and also taking care of a sick family member and training a puppy and offering to mow your elderly neighbor's lawn twice a week. Oh, and also don't forget, you have to get to the gym 4 times a week and make healthy meals for your family. Maybe this is your life. Or maybe you've figured out the secret to slowing down and finding more time. Either way, let's dive into how we use our time and how we ensure we're making the most of it. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. We know all of this to be true. Let's break down 1 week in someone's life. There are 168 hours in a week. You spend on average 56 of them sleeping, 40 of them working if you work full-time hours. You spend about 11 hours a week preparing food and 7 hours a week eating it. If you commute or walk to school or drive kids to school, that's another 10 hours of your week. People average about 4 hours a week on personal grooming. So according to my calculations, that's 128 hours of your week already accounted for, leaving 40 hours of free time, quote unquote. That averages out to about 5 to 6 hours doing what you want to do each day or what other people need you to do. It seems like a lot. As you know, these hours get eaten up really quickly with errands, appointments, favors, grocery shopping, waiting in line to have your license renewed. So let's take 3 of those hours a day out of the equation for those must-dos. So for argument's sake, let's say we have 2 hours a day to spend at our leisure. How do we choose to spend it? How will we make the most of it? And how can we remain mindful and appreciative during the moments where it feels like the time is not our own, but on someone else's schedule or doing things we don't love doing? For those of us with creative outlets like podcasts, I can tell you exactly where all my extra hours go. I love every minute of it, and I consider the podcast a time investment rather than an expenditure. Let me explain the difference. I recently read about a concept regarding time spent versus time invested. 2 opposite concepts, really. Spending means it's gone for good, never to be seen again, whereas the term investment leads us to believe that we will see a return on it someday and we'll have something to show for the time we invested. So what does investing your time look like? From my perspective, investing time looks like anything that feels worthwhile to you. There are no hard and fast rules for what makes it an investment versus an expenditure. This will be wildly different for every person. For instance, my kids spend a lot of time as a slave to the cartoon demon owl duo on Duolingo, the language learning app that has taken the world by storm. However, this is time invested for them as they're actually improving their mastery of German and French, oddly. I, however, started Duolingo a few months ago, and after about 3 weeks, I was dreading it. It felt like a total waste of time for me. As for an example of my expenditure of time, I would say I spend a little too much time shopping for things online and putting them in my virtual cart and never actually buying them. It's like modern day window shopping. This is by no means a time investment at all. Most definitely an expenditure. A little wasteful, but it's enjoyable at the same time. I don't get much return on that particular time investment, but it's fun in the moment, you know? For some folks, it's things like TikTok. Maybe they get a little lost in apps like this and spend their time scrolling videos with not much return. For others, they invest time in TikTok learning new recipes or home improvement ideas. And maybe the person who's watching cats being scared by cucumbers feels it's an investment because it makes them laugh and it brings joy in the moment and that brings value to their life. So do you see what I mean? Everyone's view of spending and investing time are different. So don't compare your joyful uses of time with that of others. Just because you're not engaged in 1 hour of silent meditation each day does not mean you're not using your time well. More on this in a minute. Another way to put this is killing time versus using time. My dad once pointed out my use or misuse, as it turns out, of this time theory when I showed up at his house between work and an appointment, and he asked what I was doing there, whereby I replied, "Oh, I'm just killing time before my dentist appointment." He went on to explain how that statement could be interpreted. We only have so much time on this earth and in this life, and we should be embracing the time we're given, not just killing it. I agreed with him for the most part, but there are times when I do just want to run out the end of my day with a glass of wine and some mindless staring into space from the comfort of my front porch. Some might argue this is killing or wasting time, but others, like me, might actually argue that this is time invested in self-love or self-care. If lounging around on my porch doing nothing is making me happy, then it is indeed a good use of time. I can't do it all the time, as I have 22 hours or so of my day that are already accounted for. As I mentioned earlier with my kids in Duolingo, any use of time could be argued to be an investment. Time and how we use it is all extremely subjective. My suggestion to you then is this: what uses of time make you happy, bring peace to your soul, or exhilarate you and fill you up? Just like with the self-care tips I gave in episode 4, just do more of what makes you happy. That's the investment. So try this. Make a list of the top 5 ways you would love to spend that precious extra 2 hours you apparently have each day. Examples from my own list would be reading, journaling, producing the podcast, hanging out with my kids or my friends. Then I challenge you to do a little bit of one of these things each day because it brings you joy. Just try one. If zoning out to Netflix is on your list, then do it. Those 2 hours are yours. There are no shoulds here. We cannot should on ourselves, meaning we shall not put pressure on ourselves to do things we don't want to do and make ourselves feel shame and guilt about it. This concept of not shoulding on ourselves, it's another gem from my poison rat tears therapist that I mentioned in episode 1 on toxic positivity. Who knew I'd get so much podcast content from therapy from 15 years ago? So no more shoulding on yourself. What I'm actually trying to get at here is the empowering idea that you get to choose. You get to choose how you make use of those 2 hours, be it reading, hiking, or playing Candy Crush. Tolkien once said, all we have to decide is what to do with the time that's given to us. So decide. Even if it's only a few precious minutes you're left with after walking the dog, finishing an assignment, driving baseball practice, folding the laundry, and working 2 jobs, it's still a few minutes and it's all yours. I truly think empowerment around time is really important. I've stopped using the term, I don't have time. I've replaced it with such phrases as, I choose not to spend my time there, or I have other things that fill my time. This small shift in semantics has taken away the victim card I used to play regarding time. It has increased the feeling that I am autonomous and I'm able to use my time in the ways I choose. I used to say things like, I wish I had more time to read novels, or I wish I had more time to spend with my friends, when in actuality, I had a choice to do so all along. I choose to go to work 5 days a week because I'm essentially choosing to pay my mortgage over the bank repossessing my house. I choose to read instead of scroll through social media reels, and I even choose some nights to crash on the couch and play that godforsaken watermelon game I downloaded on my phone in January. It's so addicting. Anyway, I get to choose how I use my time. All of my time, not just my free time. And that feels pretty damn good and very empowering. It's another example of one way that we are the architects of our own lives. So what about those other 22 hours, the ones spent doing the must-dos, the driving, the cooking, the other mandatory activities that sometimes feel put upon us? How do we sit in those moments and feel grateful for them? Try this. For every unpleasant or non-preferred hour you spend each day doing something that feels compulsory, try to think about the actual root reason why you're doing this thing. For instance, you're going to work so you can pay for the vacation you've been planning. You're doing the ironing so you can wear that cute dress you love out to dinner on Saturday. You are driving your kid to his hockey practice so he can learn a new skill and partake in a shared interest with his grandpa. It may help to take the annoyance or boredom out of the compulsory hours if you remember the real root reason why you're doing them in the first place. Another tip is this: find ways to make these compulsory hours more enjoyable by adding in something you love. My go-to here is usually audiobooks and coffee. I myself am a victim of very early morning orchestra rehearsal drop-offs for my son 3 times a week. These seriously cut into my sleep. So I make it more enjoyable. I bring a fresh cup of coffee with me for the drive. And while I'm cooking dinner, for example, not my favorite activity, I always put my headphones in and listen to an audiobook. Or another example, I watch a movie while I fold laundry. It makes those mandatory tasks way more enjoyable when you can incorporate something that you love. It also makes the time feel more like your own. Lastly, I want to touch on this concept of glorifying busyness. When did this happen, friends? When did this start? Whoever thought it was a good idea to get into competition and assign status to the busiest lady in the land has never lived a day in my friend Kay's life, the one with the AirPods and the meetings and the 4 kids. In today's society, being busy is a status symbol. It also seems to be our default response nowadays. I challenge you again, second challenge of the episode. Go to work or school or volunteering or wherever you go for those 40 hours a week. Ask a bunch of people on a Monday morning how their weekend was. I guarantee at least a couple people will say, busy, oh, so busy, but it was good. We got lots done. They maybe spent the entire weekend running kids around the city, hosting a birthday party, making dinner for their parents, and they want you to know about it. People want you to know that they are filling up all their minutes. I bet very few people will reply with, well, I poured a glass of wine and sat on the porch and stared into space for a good portion of Saturday evening. We in North American society, we like to be busy. We like to talk about how busy we are. We like to use busy as an excuse for why we can't do the things we don't want to do, which can actually come in handy sometimes. But also we use it as an excuse for why we didn't reach out to a friend or attend book club or finish the art project. When we glorify busy, it helps us to reduce the guilt we feel about the things we didn't get done. It takes the onus off of us and puts the blame on something external to us, busyness and time. Let's make a promise to stop doing that. Let's make choices about our time, choices that both fill our souls and fulfill our responsibilities. They bring us peace, happiness, joy. I know that we all have to do things out of commitment and obligation. I get it. But ultimately, you get to choose. So be the architect of your weekly 168 hours and decide how you want to spend them. All right, welcome back to the Stacks. This whole podcast episode stemmed from the reason I do the research section for the pod in the first place. It's to save you time. We are busy. Life moves fast. And so I do the digging for you. So you can still learn something new and save some time. So you're welcome. All right, the books I found, there's 2. One's called 4,000 Weeks, Time Management for Mortals by Oliver Burkeman. The second one's called 168 Hours. You Have More Time Than You Think. It's by Laura Vanderkam. Podcast-wise, there are so many podcasts out there about time management. It was actually quite hard to narrow it down. Here are a couple you might enjoy. Hurry Slowly with Jocelyn Glay. This is actually about that counterintuitive concept of slowing down in order to be more productive. It's pretty cool. It's About Time with Anna Dearman-Cormick. She's a time management coach. Such a cool job title and actually a really great podcast. The video I found was called How I Manage My Time, 10 Time Management Tips by Ali Abdal, a time management educator and author. This video is about 11 minutes long. You most certainly could make time for this one. It's 11 minutes. All right, gratitude moment. I'd like to thank my superhero mom friend Kay for her hard work in raising her 4 amazing kiddos and being stretched to the limit with all her and their commitments and still maintaining a solid level of support and check-ins and friendship for 20 years. I'm so grateful for you, KP. And when the chaos hits this week, don't forget, make the time to turn your face towards the sun. Thanks for being here.